He was essentially serious, except when he was taking the piss. It took us a while to work this out. Adrian allowed himself to be absorbed into our group, without acknowledging that it was something he sought. Perhaps he didn't. Nor did he alter his views to accord with ours. At morning prayers he could be heard joining in the responses, while Alex and I merely mimed the words, and Colin preferred the satirical ploy of the pseudo-zealot's enthusiastic bellow. The three of us considered school sports a crypto-fascist plan for repressing our sex drive. Adrian joined the fencing club and did the high jump. We were belligerently tone-deaf. He came to school with his clarinet. When Colin denounced the family, I mocked the political system, and Alex made philosophical objections to the perceived nature of reality. Adrian kept his counsel, at first anyway. He gave the impression that he believed in things. We did too. It was just that we wanted to believe in our own things, rather than what had been decided for us. Hence what we thought of as our cleansing skepticism. The school was in central London, and each day we travelled up to it from our separate boroughs, passing from one system of control to another. Back then, things were plainer, less money, no electronic devices, little fashion tyranny, no girlfriends. There was nothing to distract us from our human and filial duty, which was to study, pass exams, use those qualifications to find a job, and then put together a way of life unthreateningly fuller than that of our parents, who would approve while privately comparing it to their own earlier lives, which had been simpler and therefore superior. None of this, of course, was ever stated. The genteel social Darwinism of the English middle classes always remained implicit. "Fucking bastards, parents," Colin complained one Monday lunchtime. "You think they're okay when you're little, then you realize they're just like—" "Henry VIII, Col?" Adrian suggested. We were beginning to get used to his sense of irony, also to the fact that it might be turned against us as well. When teasing or calling us to seriousness, he would address me as Anthony, Alex would become Alexander, and the unlengthenable Colin shortened to Col. "Wouldn't mind if my dad had 6 wives, and was incredibly rich, and painted by Holbein, and told the Pope to sod off." "Any particular reason why they're FBs?" Alex asked Colin. "I wanted to go to the fun fair. They said they had to spend the weekend gardening." Right. Fucking bastards. Except to Adrian, who listened to our denunciations but rarely joined in. And yet it seemed to us he had more cause than most. His mother had walked out years before, leaving his dad to cope with Adrian and his sister. This was long before the term single-parent family came into use. Back then it was a broken home, and Adrian was the only person we knew who came from one. This ought to have given him a whole store tank of existential rage, but somehow it didn't. He said he loved his mother and respected his father. Privately, the three of us examined his case and came up with a theory that the key to a happy family life was for there not to be a family, or at least not one living together. Having made this analysis, we envied Adrian the more. In those days we imagined ourselves as being kept in some kind of holding pen, waiting to be released into our lives. And when that moment came, our lives and time itself would speed up. How were we to know that our lives had in any case begun, that some advantage had already been gained, some damage already inflicted? Also that our release would only be into a larger holding pen, whose boundaries would be at first undiscernible. In the meantime we were book-hungry, sex-hungry, meritocratic, anarchistic. All political and social systems appeared to us corrupt, yet we declined to consider an alternative other than hedonistic chaos. Adrian, however, pushed us to believe in the application of thought to life, in the notion that principles should guide actions. Previously, Alex had been regarded as the philosopher among us. He had read stuff the other two hadn't, and might, for instance, suddenly declare, "Whereof we cannot speak, thereof we must remain silent." Colin and I would consider this idea in silence for a while, then grin and carry on talking. But now Adrian's arrival dislodged Alex from his position, or rather, gave us another choice of philosopher. If Alex had read Russell and Wittgenstein, Adrian had read Camus and Nietzsche. I had read George Orwell and Aldous Huxley. Colin had read Baudelaire and Dostoevsky. This is only a slight character.